That's my secret, cat. I'm always angry.
Alright. I ran out of patience. On the roost!
Hey everyone, Captain, big fan of Spider-Man.
Avengers! Assemble.
Hello, Peter.
Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and it's a little bit of a special episode here. I wasn't expecting to do anything before Loki episode 2 here, but some news broke this morning. Some news about the Daredevil Disney Plus show, as well as just how they're going to overhaul the whole TV business. This article came out this morning by Borys Kit. But it's his headline here is Daredevil hits reset button as Marvel overhauls its TV business. And I'm not going to lie, when I saw this, a little nervous, a little apprehensive. Because lately we have had some changes in writers, directors, Fantastic Four, Blade, stuff like that. We've had some projects pushed back, like Ironheart, that is seemed to be pushed back due to wanting to premiere closer to Armor Wars, which it is kind of linked to. But it's been kind of a rocky time in that regard across the whole Disney company. Star Wars projects getting pushed back, Marvel stuff getting pushed back. Disney shows, they just hired, according to a report from yesterday, they just kind of hired their writer for their Tiana series, which was announced 3 years ago. So it's kind of been that type of time for the companies and the parent company of Disney. And the article headline got me a little concerned. I was like, oh geez, what is going on here? But I will say, reading the article has made me feel a lot better about Disney Plus TV shows going forward. And if you've listened to the show, you know that I've actually enjoyed every series, even the ones that have kind of been not received as well. Like Secret Invasion, which I covered on here this summer with Casey McGeorge, who's currently covering Loki with me. But we enjoyed that series more than I would say most, who have given that like the worst series, rankings on the Disney Plus, probably for any Disney Plus show, but for sure the worst reviewed Disney Plus Marvel show. So I'm going to read the article here, not all of it, but I'm going to kind of read some of the big highlights here. So it didn't take long to see the problem after Marvel Studios' Daredevil Born Again paused production in mid-June during the writer's strike. Fewer than half of the series' 18 episodes had been shot. But it was enough for Marvel executives, including Chief Kevin Feige, to review the footage and come away with a clear-eyed assessment the show wasn't working. So in late September, Marvel quietly let go of head writers Chris Ord and Matt Corman, and also released the directors for the remainder of the season as part of a significant creative reboot for the series, The Hollywood Reporter has learned. The studio is now on the hunt for new writers and directors for the project, with stars Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, a blind lawyer turned superhero. The Daredevil revamp is the latest in a series of growing pains for Marvel Television. Since debuting the Emmy-winning WandaVision in January 2021, the studio, which dominated the film industry in the 2010s, has released more than 50 hours of TV programming after creating a small screen division from the ground up during the pandemic. Through it all, the company eschewed the traditional TV making model. It didn't commission pilots, but instead shot entire $150 million plus seasons of TV on the fly. It didn't hire showrunners, but instead depended on film executives to run its series. And as Marvel has done for its movies, it relied on post-production and reshoots to fix what wasn't working. Even though they remain, along with Star Wars titles, the most watched shows on Disney+, Marvel series have recently faced a number of creative challenges and cries of diminishing returns from critics and audience metrics, causing a major shift at the studio to move to make TV shows the more traditional way. So then they also have a chart here that says, is the Marvel TV machine slowing down? And it has, total viewing in minutes. This is sourced by Nielsen, which isn't entirely accurate for the sake of streaming, but Loki, 5.2 billion minutes watched, WandaVision 4.8, Falcon and the Winter Soldier 4.2, She-Hulk 4 billion, the Moon Knight 3.7 billion, Hawkeye 3.5, Secret Invasion 2.6, What If 2 billion, and Miss Marvel 1.8 billion minutes. And then it kind of breaks down how many episodes as well, so that way you can kind of divide it yourself and figure out how many, people are watching, or how many minutes each people are watching per episode, I guess, is how you could figure that out. So Brad Winderbaum, who worked on What If, is now also Marvel's head of streaming, television, and animation. He was quoted as saying, "We're trying to marry the Marvel culture with the traditional television culture," says Brad Winderbaum, Marvel's head of streaming, television, and animation. "It comes down to how can we tell stories in television that honor what's great about the source material." With Daredevil's new direction, Marvel hopes to right the ship on a project with sky-high expectations. The show is Marvel's first to feature a hero who already had a successful series on Netflix running 3 seasons, but sources say that Corman and Ord crafted a legal procedural that did not resemble the Netflix version, known for its action and violence. Cox didn't even show up in costume until the 4th episode. Marvel, after greenlighting the concept, found itself needing to rethink the original intention of the show. Marvel plans to keep some scenes and episodes, though other serialized elements will be injected, with Corman and Ord becoming executive producers for what is now a 2-season series. Daredevil is far from the first Marvel series to undergo drastic changes behind the scenes. Those who work on Marvel on the TV side have complained of a lack of central vision that has, according to sources, begun to afflict the studio's shows with creative differences and tension. TV is a writer-driven medium, says one insider familiar with the Marvel process. Marvel is a Marvel-driven medium. And then they kind of give us some information that I don't think we knew. On the Oscar Isaac starred Moon Knight show, creator and writer Jeremy Slater quit, and director Mohamed Diab took the reins. I don't think we knew that. Jessica Gao developed and wrote She-Hulk Attorney at Law, but was sidelined once director Kat Coiro came on board. Production was challenging with COVID hitting cast and crew, and Gao was brought back to oversee post-production, a typical showrunner duty. But it's rare Marvel head writer who has such oversight. Even though the company does not have a writer's first approach to TV, directors could feel shortchanged as well. The whole fix-it-in-post attitude made it feel like directors doesn't matter sometimes, says one person familiar with the process. And then it says, as shows ramped up during the pandemic, Marvel stepped outside its usual staffing approach and brought in outside executives after years of internally promoting creatives. The change was felt most severely on Secret Invasion, with Samuel L. Jackson-led thriller that stands as Marvel's worst-reviewed series. Kyle Bradstreet, a writer and executive producer on USA Network's Emmy winner Mr. Robot, had been working on the scripts for Secret Invasion for about a year when he was fired after Marvel decided on a different direction. Enter new writer Brian Tucker, who penned the crime thriller Broken City. Thomas Bazooka who helmed the thriller Let Him Go, and Ali Salim, who worked on Hulu's 9/11 drama The Looming Tower, were on board as directors, and they helped crack the story. So far, so normal, at least by Marvel's creative development standards. Details are murky, but what happened next in the summer of 2022 debilitated the production as factions became entrenched and leaders vied for supremacy during Secret Invasion's pre-production in London. It was weeks of people not getting along, and it erupted, says an insider. The company dispatched Jonathan Schwartz, a senior executive and member of Marvel's creative steering committee, known as the Parliament, to get Secret Invasion back on track when it was falling behind schedule and on the verge of losing some actors because of other commitments. By early September, a good portion of Invasion team have been replaced with new line producers, new unit production managers, and assistant directors. And Bazucha, who was supposed to direct 3 episodes, had to leave the show because of new scheduling conflicts. The Marvel executive overseeing the show, Chris Gary, was reassigned and, according to sources, is expected to depart when his contract is up at the end of the year. So how does this affect going forward? Well, this is what part of the article is very interesting. As it moves forward, Marvel is making concrete changes to how it makes TV. It now has plans to hire showrunners. Gal's post-production work on She-Hulk helped Marvel see that it would have been helpful for its shows to have a creative through line from start to finish. Who would have guessed? It's a term we've not only grown comfortable with, but also learned to embrace, said Winterbaum, of showrunners and Marvel's TV's intention to hire them. The studio also plans on having full-time TV execs rather than having executives straddle both television and film. We need executives that are dedicated to the medium, that are going to focus on streaming and focus on television because they are 2 different forms. It is also revamping its development process. Showrunners will write pilots and show Bibles. The days of Marvel shooting an entire series, then looking at what's working and what's not, are done. And just as Loki, which returned October 5th, marked Marvel's first season 2 of a series, the studio plans on leaning into the idea of multi-season serialized TV, stepping away from the limited series format that has defined it. Marvel wants to create shows that run several seasons, where characters can take time to develop relationships with the audience rather than feeling as if they are there as a setup for a big crossover event. And that's kind of where we'll stop with the article. There's a little bit more stuff. I probably read more than I should have on that, but there's some interesting nuggets in the article here. I think it kind of shows there's a myth about Marvel, I think, that they had everything planned out for the Infinity Saga. And from what we've kind of learned in the past, it's just not true. I think I remember reading somewhere that Joss Whedon is the one that decided to add Thanos in the post-credit scene. I don't think they were actually building up to that at that point. Then, of course, they retconned Loki's scepter to being an Infinity Stone because you're able to kind of tie that in instead of having to introduce the Soul Stone and, the Mind Stone in the upcoming films. So they kind of made it work. But that just doesn't work for television. Right? And again, I say this as somebody that's been a fan of almost every project we've gotten, really. Like I said, I even really enjoyed Secret Invasion. I enjoyed Moon Knight. I think that one's kind of controversial. I enjoyed She-Hulk. I enjoyed Ms. Marvel. Those are kind of really controversial ones. I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier gets more crap than it should. But my favorites are more along the lines of Loki, WandaVision, shows like that I think have a better through line. And I think going the right way. I think they're going the right way now with having multiple seasons of shows. Or at least setting it up to have multiple seasons. Because when I look at a show like Loki, right? And we talked about it on the premiere episode for season 2. I was very excited to be back in the world of the TVA and back with characters like Mobius and his relationship with Loki. And for me, that is what television is about. Being able to explore the characters on longer run times and also being in a familiar space. There's a reason I revisit shows like The Office or Friends or Arrested Development, is because I like those settings, I like those characters, and even when I'm done watching, I like to go back and see their dynamics again and get the jokes again and all that kind of stuff. Loki feels that way. Being back in the TVA and being like, all right, we're in the what I've been calling the world of the TVA, right? It's not like every time a new MCU project comes out, I'm like, oh, to be back in the world of the MCU. No, because they all differ so much throughout the different types, right? Because we get shows like Moon Knight that have a very different feel. Then we get shows like Secret Invasion, which has a very different feel. From like Miss Marvel, which has a very different feel. From Loki, from WandaVision, from Falcon the Winter Soldier. Because they're doing different genres pretty much. And using the strength of the characters. This one, to have a show continue and to get characters like Mobius again, instead of being like where we're currently at, right? Where we get She-Hulk and we don't know when we're seeing her again. Rumors of a season 2. Miss Marvel. We got that and we're like, oh, when are we going to see her again? Oh, the Marvels. Nice. Thank you. That's awesome. But there's some characters like Moon Knight that we still have no clue when Oscar Isaac is showing back up in any of the personalities of Moon Knight. That released almost 2 years ago, right? It was early 2022. March. It's been a year and a half. We're probably not seeing him before March of 2024 in any project, which means we're going to go multiple years. If I had to guess, probably closer to 4 before we see him pop up in anything. And that's kind of been the worrisome part of the multiverse saga for me. While I've enjoyed everything, we're not getting the same character moments that we need to get to feel something for these characters when Secret Wars happens. Which, by the way, at this pace, Secret Wars is going to be 10 years after Infinity War. Which you feel like is enough time to have the next big event. But, I mean, we haven't even seen Shang-Chi since Shang-Chi. So having television, which you can turn around a little bit faster than you can films, and being able to have multiple seasons of a show is going to be a key part of Disney Plus as well. Look at how big The Mandalorian is. That's already had 3 seasons on Disney Plus, by the way. 2019, 2020, and 2023. And in between them, we had Book of Boba Fett, which continued the journey from then. That was in 2021 to 2022. And in those, anytime you come back to The Mandalorian, sitting down to watch the 3rd season premiere of The Mandalorian, for me anyway, was awesome. Glad to be back with Mando and Grogu and seeing the universe from their perspective. And that show was the highest premiere of 2023 and even beat Loki Season 2. Which shows if you have a good concept, if you have good characters, and you have a continuing narrative, people will come back for that. And not necessarily another project. Meaning, the people that are watching Loki because they like Loki, the character, and Mobius, and they liked the first season. They, obviously, from the numbers I read earlier from the Hollywood Reporter article, are not watching Miss Marvel. They're not watching She-Hulk. Which means you gotta kind of stop the event series of, okay, now you watch Loki, now watch She-Hulk, because it takes place in the MCU. Because for some people, it's not going to grab them. And that's kind of been how it was with the films anyway, right? Not everybody that saw Infinity War or Endgame went to see Thor: The Dark World. They either caught up on Blu-ray or streaming beforehand, or they just watched the Avengers films, and they knew Loki from the Avengers. And they're like, this makes sense. Great. He's the villain in this one. Oh, I get it. He's Thor's brother. There's enough in here where you can kind of get enough information to follow the plot along. And since those movies were so huge, Infinity War and Endgame, people were jumping on. They were like, this is the time to go see it. I want to see it. I want to see this movie with all these people. It's the cultural zeitgeist. So that's kind of where we stand right now with it. And I think going forward, this is the correct path. Now, to also vent a little bit on how mind-blowing this is, to have realized, for them to realize, I know Marvel Studios never did television before, but they had people from Marvel Television in the office probably before they shut that branch down. They probably could have asked them, how does television work? I can't imagine filming a whole show and knowing it's not really working and being like, well, or just viewing it after it's already filmed and be like, well, we got to reshoot that, and we got to rewrite this and refilm this, and we got to cut this and make a change in post-production to make it work. Which we kind of heard about She-Hulk, by the way. There was rumors that the first episode where we kind of get her backstory, that whole backstory stuff was supposed to be in another episode. And they moved it up. And to me, it makes sense to have that type of stuff up front. And when you see the report here that Charlie Cox wasn't going to even suit up until the 4th episode as Daredevil. I mean, this is a show that you just went out there and said this is going to be 18 episodes. And I assume now, if they're saying 2 seasons, they're going to split these 18 up to 9. Season 1, Season 2. That's what I would guess. And But when you're having meetings and getting pitches and they say, we want to focus more on the legal aspect, you didn't ask them like, okay, how does he juggle that with being Daredevil, and how often do you see him suiting up as Daredevil? Because what this sounds like is a step back of even the Netflix show. And I had problems with the Netflix show where, you know, he's dressed up in his black outfit, you know, not even the Daredevil outfit, for long stretches in season 1. Doesn't get his red suit until the finale, right? Or right around there. And it seemed like every Netflix show was doing that, where, oh, we get the outfit at the end of the season. And Disney Plus shows have kind of taken that a bit, right? With Captain America getting his Captain America suit in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like at the very end. So that was a little concerning. And the way it was worded in the article was after they saw some footage that they started to question this approach. So I'm assuming they were on board and then realized, oh, we can't do this. But I want to know why. I want to know why that crossed their mind at that point. Why, oh crap, this thing I agreed to earlier, I can't agree to now. It's very strange. Especially the fact knowing that they didn't have any show Bibles. There was no showrunner. You know, we kind of always talked about the head writer, which is kind of the term they've been using. But it seemed like once they wrote it, it was kind of out of their hands, which again is just not really what television is like. You want to be able to have that consistent through line. Like even on shows like, let me bring up The Office again. They have a writer. They have a director. But they also have the writer who wrote the episode usually on set to answer questions that the director or the cast have. Why is my character doing this? Why is, you know, how did you want me to say this line? What's the delivery here? Is it supposed to be funny? Is it supposed to be more straight? And the writer is able to answer those type of questions. Oh, we're having your character do this because it's setting up something in the future. etc., etc. So when you just have the director on the set who may not even know what's being set up or whatever, it's like they can't even ask anybody. So while the headline of the article made me really concerned, after reading the article, it makes me a lot more optimistic about the future of Marvel television. And how going forward, we should see some more consistency. Now, of course, some of these shows we're still not getting until 2025, like Ironheart. So you're not even really seeing the changes until maybe fall of 2025, if Daredevil comes out by then. 2026? Do you start seeing more of the fruit of these changes? What I also think will, of course, happen with doing it like this. This is not what people are going to want to hear, maybe. So I do think that means we will lose some more of the connectivity between the shows and the movies. When we're talking about getting executives that are specific for television, and we're talking about having show Bibles and multiple seasons of shows, and depending on how fast they want to turn these around, it's going to be very hard to not fall into the trap that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did, or the original Daredevil, where they make references to the films, and the films don't reference anything in the shows. And I am kind of fine with this at this point. Give me the lesser known characters on Disney Plus, or give me more interesting characters on Disney Plus that might be able to show up in a big team up. But I don't think we really need it to be as connected as everybody has been wanting. You know, like, give me Daredevil in his own little world, still connect it, and he can show up in other Disney Plus shows. He can show up in Secret Wars. He can show up in a Spider-Man movie. But maybe not always making the jump to film. Are we going to need Wonder Man on film? I think it's good if he gets a show. He has a show. They're working on it. It paused during the strikes, but I'm not sure he needs to be in Secret Wars. So that's kind of where I think maybe the future of the television stuff is. It's almost like taking a step back. Unless if they're really going to work together enough to say, here's what our outline is. But we know that the films change on a whim too. And therein lies the problem with connectivity from the show and from the movies. And I think once the multiverse saga is wrapped up, you may not even have that much connectivity between the shows and the movies at all. All right, so I'm probably going to wrap it up here. I hope I've shared some clear thoughts. I saw this article this morning and I was like, I'll try to get this episode up before, we dive into the next Loki episode, which is premiering tomorrow, of course, Thursday, October 12th, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And let me know your thoughts. Did this article make you feel any better about the shape of the TV shows? Does this article make you feel worse? Are you worried about Daredevil? I'm a part of the opinion that I'd rather you find out now and make the changes. That's just what I'd prefer. They have a lot of pressure on this, and this is why I was so shocked that they didn't really have this nailed down before they're even filming, in the sense of, this is a lot of pressure. There's a lot of people that want this to be right because they love the original show. And the applause that Charlie Cox got showing up in Spider-Man No Way Home and all that, I mean, as more time goes on, the show has kind of grown its legacy a bit. So there's a lot of pressure. So I was a little surprised that they were like waiting until they see it and being like, ooh, this is not what we wanted. I feel like that would have been some conversations beforehand. Let me know your thoughts on all that. You can reach us in the, at all the socials in the description below. thank you all for listening along with us. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you this weekend for our Loki Season 2, Episode 2 recap.